Yeah, welcome back to another Hearthstone card review. I've already talked about these cards because I was part of the reveal stream for these today with my buds Raren and Firebat. Well, I can't really call Firebat a bud. I've only met Firebat like one time before. Raren and I, though, are good friends, and it was a fun stream for sure. It was nice hanging out. But I've known these cards for a while because, spoiler alert, those are pre-recorded, guys. We recorded that like a few weeks ago, I think. So, good to revisit these after a little time off, even though you saw them perhaps for the first time today during the reveal stream. But we got some nutty cards to talk about, man. These are absolutely silly. This is Slice and Dice for Rogue, new 5-mana legendary spell. Replay all other cards played this turn, targeting enemies if possible, and then end your turn. So I think this is really going to shine with spells in particular, spells that can deal damage, even face damage. You might be able to stack up a bunch of those in a single turn and then basically duplicate all of that, especially if you like clear the board. Any damage based spells that can go face are just going to all get launched face. So this could be this sort of lethal push if you're able to sort of weave all of that together. I will say minions, you're probably going to clog out the board. Also keep in mind minions, like, don't replay battle cries as we've seen in the past with stuff like Test. It would just be a body on board, which, if you've already played them this turn, to replay them, that means you're going to run out of board space really quickly. Don't think about stuff like Vanessa because, you've already clogged the board perhaps with Vanessa. That's not really the direction to go with this. It's more about I managed to put together a bunch of spells in a single turn, and now I'm going to blow up with all of those perhaps discounted spells, face damage spells. Coins are actually interesting to talk about with this one because obviously if you're going to do a bunch of stuff in one turn, you number one need a bunch of mana, which coins can give you. The coins themselves, keep in mind, you would replay the coins for more mana, but this does end your turn, so you wouldn't be able to do anything with that extra mana. But if you've played Aya, the new Aya, your coins might actually just summon you like Jade Golems. So that would be a way to get extra Jades out of it, and the Jades would follow Jade rules, I think, and continue to get bigger. Extra damage is possible as well. We saw with that one that could clear minions or get some Cabal potions or whatever. So the coins extra are still potentially useful, particularly with Aya, and they might still be useful anyway because they might activate your Auctioneer. Since we've got that return of that Auctioneer, that can help you find even more stuff to do and just weave in extra face damage spells. So all in all, I do think you can put together some absolutely crazy turns with this one, and Rogue is absolutely the class to shine with this sort of card. Preparation it out to, it's only a 3-mana spell. So I think you could cook some pretty silly stuff with this in combination with various other discounts, preps, coins, just like a million things are possible with Slice and Dice. And that could also, who knows, activate other things. You just create these pop-off turns with Auctioneers where I think you could just use this as a tool to completely blow up opponents and break the game. And I don't know exactly what that deck list looks like right now. Frankly, might not even have enough pieces right now. It might be something that just gets better and better as we get more and more cards over time too. So either way, really, I think probably pretty good already. Maybe nuts broken down the road somewhere too. This card just looks like it has a lot of potential to end games, not just end your turn. So moving on to another rogue card here that could kind of play well with this spam Auctioneer Miracle style. This is the Defias Wannabe. Apparently wants to be Edwin Van Cleef there with that bandana. This is a 4-mana 2/2 prepare combo, gain +1/+1 for each other card played this turn, which of course is a lot like the old Edwin Van Cleef. Do keep in mind the old Edwin gained +2/+2, so could scale much quicker here than the Defias Wannabe, but this does have prepare, so if you at any given point float that 3 mana to set this down to 0, it could be much easier to get a fairly big guy out of this. That said, half the scaling of Edwin, I think, really changes this one so dramatically. You got to play basically twice as many cards to get it as big as Edwin in the old days. And you do need to get these up to a point where they're game-endingly big. Even a 10/10 out of this is probably not going to be worth it a lot of the time. You might need this to get crazy where it kills the opponent in a couple hits or just puts them so far behind. So how many cards do you have to play in a given turn? How possible is that going to be in the early to mid game when that's strong, chaining together coins and Edwins? I think you'll probably see this come down a lot as sort of an 8/8 or a 10/10, maybe even a 12/12 sometimes. Although 12/12 sounds hard, man. 10 cards is actually a lot. I just don't know, like, how, you've already sacrificed 3 mana to do that up front somewhere along the way. How are you getting so many cards that early? I think this will be easier to pull off like post auctioneer turns later, but you're preparing this, you're preparing your auctioneer. Like, you just got a lot of things going on here. Maybe this just goes with Vanessa, but Vanessa also wants board space. So it's like, gosh, I don't want to write it off because a 0 mana 8/8, 0 mana 10/10 effectively sometimes is going to be a big splash on boards. We can kind of go all in at once. But at the same time, I do think it's going to be hard to get this quite big enough. This is like just a different era for those kinds of cards in Edwin. And I think half the scale rate here basically is going to limit this one more than people think. Sometimes having 2 of these or something would be cool too. But then you're talking about floating 6 mana ahead of time. I just don't see all that lining up that easily. I think this one falls just a hair short. Moving on here to the Lotus Bookie, a 2 mana 2/2 Death Rattle, get a coin, which we need some coin support pieces for the Aya Blackpaw deck, right? You're going to need ways to get coins and use those coins. And, Lotus Bookie is a nice little step in that process. In a coin deck, you're obviously gonna run this, right? Like, you gotta have coins. I actually think this is kind of okay otherwise too. It's not that bad to just have stuff to throw down early, just get a little body in play. And a coin is just so generically useful for stuff like your Defias Wannabe, stuff like your Slice and Dice, right? We just want coins, we want mana, we want combo activators in Rogue. I sort of think this is a fine early game speed bump that just sets up a lot of different decks. So I think it's kind of sleepy good generically and also directly helpful to a coin deck. Although I'm not actually convinced coin deck's going to be a real archetype, I still think this card looks pretty solid. I don't know if we're getting more coin support for Rogue, certainly not today. And usually they reveal these in batches. So it makes me nervous we're not going to see any other coin stuff. Well, we're going to see a coin synergy card, but not a way to get coins, I should specify here, with Blackpaw's Whip. This one is a 3 mana 3/2 weapon, costs 1 less for each coin you're holding, and then Death Rattle, draw a card, which I actually think this is kind of an okay weapon if it just says Death Rattle, draw a card. Like, not amazing, but a 3/2 weapon, a Fiery War Axe that draws you a card. Like, okay, maybe not that bad, actually. Just keep up a little early and get a card out of it along the way too. But then the discount here does help, even just in a regular world, anytime you hit coin. So a 50-50 chance that this is just a 2 mana 3/2 weapon, like legit old school Fiery War Axe that draws you a card. Like, that's already a great card. And then if you're running Aya, you're going to have that coin always, right? So suddenly it's like, just using Aya, even if you don't care about the coin upside later and playing the Aya and stuff, could just turn this into a pretty good card all the time. And then maybe the bookie makes it even cheaper. It's a 1 mana 3/2, but maybe it's enough to just say a 2 mana 3/2 weapon's okay. Maybe it's enough as a 3 mana 3/2. I doubt it, but it's like close-ish. Like, it's maybe not that bad, just baseline. So yeah, I'm intrigued. Again, it's going to take a while, presumably, to get a lot of coins, like setting this to 0. Like, sure, that could happen on turn 5 or 6 or whatever sometimes with Aya. It helps a little make that Aya turn feel a bit less dead, perhaps, which is kind of cool. But also a 3/2 weapon doesn't really scale that well into the mid game. So I don't really think this is about getting it to 0, perhaps, so much as maybe just getting it to 2 is your goal. And maybe that's fine. Instead of just hero powering, sometimes you just play the whip and you're happy. So I think it's actually okay. I think this card's pretty solid. And the next up for Rogue here is the Pick Lock. This is a 1 mana 1/1. Reads, all numbers on this card equal your remaining mana, and then Battle Cry, deal 1 damage to an enemy minion. So if you have 5 mana remaining, this is a 5 mana 5/5 that deals 5 to an enemy minion, which, there are definitely breakpoints where I think this is okay. 3 mana 3/3 in particular, like, sometimes that's going to feel fine to just take a little swing on board, fill your turn or whatever. It falls off after the mid game pretty hard. Even turn 4, I don't know. Turn 5, I don't know. Certainly turn 7 or 8 or whatever, I don't know. Like, yeah, you could fill it in again for 3 mana later on or something. That like flexibility or utility is kind of cool on this, especially if you just like have a deck that's kind of waiting to blow up later. I could see that being a thing. And I guess don't sleep on just, Elven Archer sometimes is okay too. But at the same time, like, you got to put this in your deck, right? I can imagine generating this and be like, yeah, there's some moments where this feels pretty good. Actually running it in a deck list seems like a bigger challenge. I don't think people will make space for this. So next up, we're going to move over to some Shaman cards. And I wanted to revisit real quickly Muggsy here and the start of game effect, because it's going to be really important context as we talk about these future cards. Remember Muggsy, if your deck has no minions, you get Muggs hero power. So if you have no minions, your first minion each turn costs 2 less, which means you need a way to generate minions in your deck without minions. We're going to see some cards that satisfy that. We've also got, if your deck has no spells, you get Z's hero power. Every 5th minion you play triggers its battle cry twice. So we want some battle cry minion stuff basically for Z's hero power. Both of these are going to be matched here with some new cards. Kicking it off with, I guess, Molten Gold, a new 3-mana fire spell. This one deals 4 damage, and if you cast 3 spells while holding it, I guess, it turns into a minion, which is the Molten Gold Elemental. This is now a 3-mana 3/3, and we're going to see a few of these cards. They basically just all get stats equal to their cost, with Battlecry deal 4 damage. So these are spells that turn into minions, which is perfect for the no minion hero power here. So keep in mind, basically, too, although it's a 3-mana 3/3 with that 2-cost discount, this is kind of a 1-mana 3/3 that deals 4 damage, which 3-mana 3/3 that deals 4 damage, honestly, is already kind of solid. Like, that's good. Even if you just want to go face with it, that's fine. Take a swing on board, that's fine. 1-mana 3/3, man, you could really weave that in. 1-mana deal 4 seems like the kind of thing. It's like, yeah, I save one of these up for later. Start that as a lethal push, a nice little finisher or whatever. Keep in mind, you wouldn't be able to discount 2 per turn. It's only your first minion each turn. So it's not like you're getting 2 1-mana 3/3s in a given turn, but still, turn after turn, as you start stacking up these discounts, these do all feel like really good kind of tempo swing sort of plays, as we're going to see the future cards. Now, Molten Gold at a base. Little bit less excited about this one, I guess. I feel like, it'll be fine sometimes as like a bad fireball or whatever. 3-mana deal 4 is not the most efficient output, but it might be okay. I am, by the way, assuming that these require it to be in hand in order to see the 3 spells cast. Otherwise, they would just kind of always be done immediately. But I don't actually know that for sure. I feel like I want to look that up real quick and see if I can see people talking about that to confirm my suspicions there. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's right. We've actually got cards like those priest cards. I think it has to be in hand for its upgrade. So that's 99% sure, even though I don't have specific Blizzard confirmation. So, like top decking these basically becomes a bit of a downside. Like, are they still good playable cards when they're top decked or late in a game or whatever? Molten Gold, I definitely think is, because there's still just going to be moments you want that 4 damage just because it's 4 damage and you're close to killing the opponent or whatever, and that's great. So not like amazing, but solid, and good, of course, as a Molten Gold elemental as well. The minion side of it's going to feel great. So moving on here to Frost Shatter. This is a 5-mana frost spell. This one allows you to freeze an enemy and then draw 2 cards. Which, of course, once transformed after you've played 3 spells, you're going to have the Frost Shatter Elemental, 5-mana 5/5 Elemental, Battlecry, freeze an enemy, and draw 2 cards. Now, on this one, I do think the top half of this looks pretty bad. Like Frost Shatter, 5-mana, draw 2. Like, often when you're drawing cards, you want to have some room left over, right? You want to have the option to play that stuff. And 5-mana overhead on that's really, really high. Like, it's going to be hard to play anything afterwards. And with only a singular freeze, it's like, man, am I actually going to be, like, this isn't much of a stall, right? I'm not going to have that much time. Maybe if the opponent has exactly 1 giant dude out, it's okay. But there's going to be a lot of board states where you just don't feel like you have the space to play this. Now, when we go over to the minion side of things, as a 5-mana 5/5, still shaky, right? Like, I don't know. The singular target free, he's not that good at anything, not that good at stats, expensive card draw, limited freeze. But as a 3-mana 5/5, like, I'm more intrigued for sure, right? Like, a 3-mana is now cheap enough that a singular target freeze feels kind of worth it. 3-mana card draw, suddenly it's an Arcane Intellect and a Glacial Shard and a 5/5 all at once. That does start to feel like 3-mana. Is it totally cracked at 3-mana? No, but I think it's good. I think it's a good play at 3. So it just becomes a question of how consistently are you playing this for 3 versus stuck with the spell number 1, or, just you played another minion, you're weaving multiple minions together. It's like, yeah, you might get this for 3, but then your Molten Gold costs 3 as well. And it's like, well, there's some opportunity cost basically on that once per turn discount. So, like, I'm torn. I think once everything's lined up perfectly, this is a pretty good card. But man, the front half sucks. Top decking this is really hard in particular, I think. Some real challenges on that. That side of it kind of makes me nervous. So then our next transforming spell here is Storm Fury. 7 mana nature spell this time. Lifesteal, deal 2 damage to all enemy minions. And cast 3 spells to turn into a minion. And then you got the Storm Fury Elemental, 7 mana, 7/7, Lifesteal again, deal 2 damage to all minions, which 7 mana, 7/7, but also sometimes a 5 mana, 7/7, which that's nice actually. And the deal 2 damage is not always going to clear, but also sometimes might just be like a heal 8, heal 10 or whatever. That's developing a 7/7 that feels like a pretty decent swing. And there will still be some, treant boards or whatever, but this just like completely blows them out because it was such an efficient removal. Divine Shield popping's kind of cool, but you lose the lifesteal. Like there's a few other angles there. But 7 mana again is really prohibitively expensive for the base versions of this. And it's like, I'm only excited about this at all if it's a 5 mana 7/7. The other 2 versions of this, I think, are just too slow. 2 damage is way too little on turn 7, even with the life gain aspect of it. You'd have to combo with other stuff to really like effectively remove boards. So it's like so much of the fate of this card, I think, really increasing with each one because of the costs, become more and more reliant on the minion version of this to be worth it, which just makes them so bad when you're top decking late. You gotta have these in hand early to be decent cards, which how often is that going to happen versus not? It makes me nervous it's not going to happen enough. So it's like good on both forms, like good, cheap enough that it's good everywhere. Kind of middle of the road on the spell, but a good minion. This one is like pretty bad spell and kind of not too bad about the minion, like solid minion maybe. So it's like, 2 mana spell, or excuse me, 2-star spell, 3-star minion. 3-star spell, 4-star minion. 3-star spell, 4-star minion, right? Maybe 3.5, 4.5 for the fire guy. I just like as a package, it's shaky, right? You got to commit to so many other spells to really care about this. Because if you're not doing this in the Mugsy deck, I don't know if these are playable outside of Mugsy at all. Like it just might not be worth it at all outside of Mugsy. Maybe the 3-cost spell's fine. So I think I don't think this is quite there for me yet. I think this looks a little too weak, and it's like just getting a whole deck together around that, because you're going to need more than these kind of 6 cards per 30 to really make the minions feel worth it. We're going to see one more thing here that might help, but ultimately, I think it's shaky. So next up is this new location, the Low Security Wing, a 1 mana 3 durability location. Get a random shaman minion. It's locked in your hand until you play another card. So this is another way to generate minions for your minion discount deck running no minions. And in fact, 3 per location hit is honestly pretty sweet. Keep in mind, even if you play this on turn 1, some of those aren't getting generated until, turn 5 or whatever later in the game, but ultimately, still 3 generated cards for 1 mana is a really nice value rate of return, and that's kind of 6 mana in potential discounts as well. Now when it comes to random minions, it is nice that the pool has been narrowed to shaman minions specifically, so that's going to increase the average quality of the cards notably compared to if it's just like neutrals or whatever. There are still some things that aren't going to be perfect. Even thinking about like Mugsy, it's like, well, he's just Boulder Fist Ogre stats. You don't always have effects or synergies that are going to line up with what you want to be, but still, hopefully the discount in that style of deck would still make it worth it. Again, I don't know if this card would ever get run outside of a Mugsy deck. You kind of need a reason to care about generating all this random stuff, and the discount is certainly a great reason for that, and the inability to run minions otherwise a great reason for that. So perhaps a pretty narrow card that might be tied to Mugsy's fate a little bit here, but I think it's just a really nice rate of return. So this feels pretty solid again for the Mugsy stuff, just not amazing still yet, because I think what will happen sometimes is you just get a bunch of high cost stuff that you can't play for a long time, and it feels like you're doing nothing. Because if you get 7 mana, 8 mana, 9 mana card, like it's still going to take a while for this to line up. You're far more likely to get low cost stuff, of course, but they also just might not be that good at tempo plays or getting weak synergy developments or whatever. So it's just like really kind of putting your hands up to fate, and the fact that it's random and not discover, like I think that's going to hold this one back. Moving on to the Galagio Goon, we're kind of jumping into the other side here of Muggsy, where now you're running a bunch of minions, particularly battle cry minions, to take advantage of that doubled battle cry, but you're not running any spells. And the Galagio Goon looks kind of terrifying, I think. This is a 1 mana 1/3. After you play a Battlecry minion, give it +1/+1, which is honestly really scary scaling. I think this could just lead to a ton of stats and honestly some blowouts if this isn't handled early. I mean, honestly, I was just thinking like this plus a couple Witch's Apprentices on turn 1 is like a monster play already, right? Get a couple 1/2s that give you spells and have taunts. The taunts can protect the Galagio Goon from trades. Then you play some like, I don't know, Fireflies or whatever, get a couple Firefly bodies down on turn 2, and you are like off to the races with tempo and pressure that's almost sort of secondary from the Battlecry hero power that's also going to add in some cool stuff later, I'm sure. So this is just one of those cards that's so scary with how hard it can snowball. 3 health is kind of a sweet spot where it's killable early, but also there's a lot of like 2 damage increments out there as well. A bunch of spells that like deal 2 instead of dealing 3. So I think there are some scenarios where this lives for a couple turns, or if you have any kind of follow-ups that can buff this or whatever too, to increase that survivability. It's kind of spooky, man. It's kind of spooky. I think this card looks like it's... You don't want to say it's totally broken because you don't know how well the deck's going to come together, but this is a potentially very broken, highly scalable, just monster early game threat that will absolutely just like win some games, I think, because of blowouts. And that's why I think it's a really strong card. There definitely going to be some people gooning in Hearthstone, man. The Hearthstone Gooners have arrived. I personally cannot wait to goon game after game in Hearthstone. I'm done with the goon humor. So next up here is the Hijacked Security Bot. Battlecry synergy, potentially 4 mana 3/3 elemental mech. Prepare, and Battlecry give your other minions +1/+1. So bit of a board development card here, where the nice thing about this is like sometimes these follow-up cards are hard because you don't have the ability to play stuff alongside them immediately, and if you weren't already really ahead, it could be hard to get any kind of value out of this hero power, or out of this effect, I mean Battlecry. But now you like skip turn 3, this goes down to 0 mana. You can play this on turn 4 alongside other stuff. For instance, 2 Galagio Goons come down alongside the Hijacked Security Bot, and you're off to the races, man, right? They're each buffed to 2/4 for increased survivability. The security bot's getting buffed twice. You weave in, frankly, a couple other cards alongside that, some Fireflies, whatever, like I said. You could, instead of going for like immediate tempo, you could try to set up for these kind of mid-game boards where you just build such an, a crazy threat on turn 4 that maybe that wins you the game, because the opponent can't just suddenly delete 5-6 things that all have crazy stacking buffs or whatever. That's possible too. I do worry, like, does that plan work in modern day Hearthstone as well? It probably does, but I don't know if it gets crazy big enough. There's like limited removal in Hearthstone these days, so I could see some windows for that to work. I kind of just like the play it out turn 1, turn 2, turn 3 better, which Security Bot goes against a little bit because you don't want to skip turns in a tempo deck that's trying to build stats on stats and really leverage that turn by turn pressure. So it's tough. Like, which direction does the deck go, basically? And does it maybe use Security Bot anyway, just because, like, hey, even if I don't prepare this, maybe it's okay sometimes on turn 4, maybe other times I didn't get off to the start I wanted, I'm a little behind, and I can use the Security Bot to create that mid-game swing? I think that's a possibility. Plus, you just need to run like a lot of minions in these decks and a lot of battle cries, and especially if this battle cry is the one that goes off twice because you've timed it perfectly, which again, that's a bit of a challenge, but definitely doable. Then another +2/+2 buff, like, man, that's a crazy stack of stuff. So I do actually think this probably gets there as I math it all out and think through the turns. That backup plan of sorts that's still decent at a baseline, especially if that battle cry hits twice in either case. Like, yeah, I think that's going to be nice to have that option, that pivot basically for this one. No, whoops, I forgot a Shaman card. Disguise Detective, 1 mana 4/3, can be played on either side. Overload that player for 2, which pretty fun use of the disguised mechanic here again, which I think is like a super cool underrated mechanic that could be its own like whole expansion theme almost, but really fun idea here. So you can either take an awesome like 4-3 for you. Maybe you don't have anything to do on turn 2 anyway. You just want to get this monster stat line down early. Maybe you have some overload synergies as well, which is still a thing that kind of can float around. And this would be a monster enabler, I feel like, for any kind of overload deck, actually. Or if you want to disrupt your opponent and maybe you have an easy way to clean up a 3 health target. You got, I don't know, Lightning Storm or whatever. You want to play it into your Lifesteal spell over here. That wouldn't kill it, but you get some more healing. Who knows? You can also choose to overload them as well, which could be actually rather disruptive for certain like key turns, combo setups, whatever. They're going to play their Alakir, there's something in their Herald deck. I don't know why I went for Shaman specifically, but hit a key thing, blow that turn up, and you can actually do it multiple turns in a row as well. If you're a control deck, I don't hate the idea of weaving this in as a bit of a disruptor, like a sneaky little tool there. I don't know if it's actually going to be good in that case, but I do actually think this is kind of decent. It's just like slam the 1-drop and skip turn 2. I don't think you can even prepare on turn 2 if you're overloaded, of course, but still like maybe worth it. It's tight on that one, but I wouldn't be shocked at all if this card actually gets quite a bit of play just between those two aspects. So moving on over to Demon Hunter here, I wanted to quickly revisit Irida, remind you how this works. She's going to send your deck to the Void, from which you will draw 2 cards per turn, but it does mean your deck will be empty, and as you draw cards from your normal deck, you will take fatigue damage. That is, unless you have a card like this one, click through the wrong one, Cosmic Manifestations, a 2-mana spell, deal 2 damage, shuffle a random Demon Hunter spell into your deck, or outcast, do it again. So this could be a way to refill your deck, basically, after Irida has emptied your deck. This can also, just be a face damage, clean up a little minion, whatever, but remove that fatigue damage threat, but also basically mean you're going to be drawing like 3 cards per turn because you're going to get 2 from the Void and now get a random Demon Hunter spell from your deck as well. So this could be kind of a great follow-up to an Irida deck to just really hammer people, and this still has that kind of aggressive side of things going for it as well. I think this is like a nice little tool for Irida specifically. Now, outside of Irida, this is almost never going to be worth it. It's not efficient enough damage. Random spells being added to your deck is just actively bad. You don't want that. You'd rather draw your real cards. So, like, it's got to be Irida specifically. I still wonder if I don't prefer Broxigar stuff ultimately for Irida, but you might be able to do both and still weave this in. This could be a way to kill the Broxigar minions and so on. So, ultimately, this does still seem like a pretty good card, specifically for Irida decks, which I do think are going to work. If I thought Irida was bad, I would say I think this card's bad, but I think Irida's pretty darn strong. I think I gave Irida 5 stars, in fact. So this, to me, does have quite a bit of potential there. We also have Hellraiser here, 3-mana 2/2. Battlecry, discover a card in your deck. If it's empty, gain +4/+4 instead. So this is a 3-mana 6/6 basically in an Irida deck if you've decided to leave your deck empty. Alternatively, this is just a little 3-mana 2/2 that basically trackings a card out of your deck, which don't like totally sleep on that. That's not that bad. I don't know if most decks would make the room for that, but it's not crazy. And then like, it can help you find your Irida even, for instance, right? So you hit your Irida as soon as possible or whatever. And then you still have this kind of backup plan for it where sometimes just taking a 3-mana 6/6, especially in an Irida deck, you could maybe see this coming down on turn 5 or something where you maybe take a couple turns of an empty deck before the fatigue gets out of hand, and then you do stuff like shuffle more cards in later. It's a possibility. At the same time, I could see this getting cut in favor of like one direction or the other, where it's like I'm just going to go all in on shuffling or Broxigar or whatever, and the Hellraiser maybe doesn't add in that much upside because I don't really ultimately want my deck to be empty at the end of the day. So it's like, is the 3-mana 6/6 worth enough? Like, that's good, but not crazy. So I think this card's fine, but I wouldn't be totally shocked if it did get cut in some Irida lists. And then our final card of the video here is the Captive Nathrazim, a 10-mana 6/12 demon. Prepare and taunt, and all minions cost 2 more. So it's not one of those 10-mana prepare cards where you can skip turn 4, prepare this, it'll get a 5 cost discount, and then play it on turn 5, which I don't actually hate that. It would be very disruptive to some decks, right? Like, with that 12 health is enough that, like, man, that's some decks just like wouldn't necessarily have a great board to push through this. It could really lock down their like aggressive board if they're trying to develop more minions to play, develop a rush minion to clear it, whatever. There are game states where that would be a pretty good line to take, and it would feel like it kind of swung you the game and won you a game. I think the problem is just like what deck is doing that, and are they willing to run the Captive Nathrezim? Because anytime you don't hit that, how good is this card, right? It's sort of like a really expensive tech card, a disruptive card that's such a big commitment. I think that's going to be tough. I think this card is probably one that ultimately doesn't really get played in deck lists, but it's pretty cool that it exists in the random generation pool. That's going to create some fun moments, some surprise, some silliness there with that minion debuff. Now, remember, it does also affect you, so like you would want to run this in a deck that's not running a lot of other minions, has a heavy spell or weapon focus. Like, it's a possibility, but it's just another point against this when you're constructing your deck, right? Could also limit and hold you back playing even a second Captive Nathrezim, because this doesn't seem to have a cap on it of anything either, so it could just lock out 10 drops completely if it sticks. So like funny, cool, kind of intriguing, some possibilities, but ultimately, I've said ultimately a lot again, but at the end of the day, just too slow. So all that said, let's go ahead and rate these cards from 1 to 5 stars. Slice and Dice is a 5-star card. Defias Wannabe is a 3-star card. Lotus Bookie is a 4-star card. Black Paws Whip is a 3-star card. Picklock is a 2-star card. Molten Gold is a 4-star card. Frost Shatter is a 3-star card. Storm Fury is a 2-star card. Low Security Wing is a 3-star card. Galagio Goon is a 5-star card. Hijacked Security Bot is a 4-star card. Hex Marshal is a 1-star card. Disguised Detective is a 4-star card. Cosmic Manifestations is a 3-star card. Hellraiser is a 3-star card. Captive Nathrezim is a 2-star card. And yeah, folks, that's the card review. Let me know what you think. Does the no minion shaman get there? Are these good enough? I got my doubts. I think the no spell shaman Galagio Goon package looks way more crazy. Slice and Dice looks absolutely crazy as well. So still some really high potential cards here. Share your thoughts on all of these down in the comments below. Thanks much as always for watching, and until next time, game on.